The words didn't just hurt, they shattered me. Pay rent or leave mom. He said it like he was offering me a choice, like he was being reasonable. But I heard it for what it was, a betrayal with no ceremony. I stood there in the kitchen, holding a mug I hadn't even sipped from yet, and I remember the way my hands trembled. I watched my son, my only son, lean against the fridge like some smug landlord, and I felt my chest tighten in a way that I can only describe as dying slowly from the inside out. "Excuse me," I managed. "You heard me?" he said. "I talked it over with Lauren. You've been living here for free. It's not fair." The mug dropped. It didn't break, but the coffee splashed all over the linoleum. That's the only reason I didn't fall. My legs buckled, but I caught myself on the countertop. He didn't even flinch, just crossed his arms like he was waiting for me to say thank you for the warning. I cried that night, not the kind of crying you do when you're sad, the kind that empties you, the kind that leaves your pillow soaked and your mouth tasting like salt and silence, the kind that breaks something you know will never quite mend the same way again. Let me know where you're listening from. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. And if this story speaks to you, share your thoughts below. Don't skip, because what happens at the end will surprise you more than the betrayal itself. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'm not ashamed either. See, there's something about growing older that people don't understand until it's too late. They mistake our patience for weakness, our silence for surrender, our love for permission. My name is Margaret. I'm 62 years old. I raised my son Daniel in the very house he now wanted to charge me rent for. I cooked his first meals in that kitchen. I sewed his Halloween costumes at the dining room table. I stayed up sick with worry when he missed curfew. I sat in that exact same chair where he stood now sobbing the day his father left. And I remember holding him on the couch when he asked, "Are you ever going to leave me too?" I didn't. I never did. Until the day he told me I should. The betrayal didn't come with yelling or slammed doors. It came with that casual cruelty, the kind that comes when someone's already made up their mind. I think that's what hurt most. Not just the words, but the decision behind them. He didn't say it in anger. He said it in conclusion, like a verdict, like a man who had weighed the scales and found me lacking. I wanted to scream at him, to remind him whose name used to be on the mortgage, to remind him that I signed it over to him when he begged me, cried in my lap, because he thought it would help him qualify for that damn business loan. I wanted to tell him how many times I went without, so he didn't have to. But I said nothing, just cleaned up the coffee, went to my room, sat on the edge of my bed, and let the silence wrap around me like a noose. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. Just stared at the ceiling and remembered birthdays, laughter, nights spent watching cartoons on the floor, the times I caught him asleep on my chest after a long day. And I wondered, how did we get here? How did the boy who used to call me his best friend become the man who looked at me like a tenant, overstaying her welcome? I wanted to believe this was just the girlfriend's influence. Lauren. She was younger than him by a few years, but sharp, clean-cut, cold-eyed, polite in the way predators are polite, always smiling, always correcting me with a laugh. She means well, Daniel had once said. But that night, I didn't care who meant well. I just sat there listening to them laugh in the living room like nothing had happened. And something inside me began to shift. Not break? Not yet. But shift. That's where this story begins. Not with heartbreak, but with realization. Because when the ones you love throw you out of your own home, they forget you taught them how to stand. And I had taught my son everything, even how to lie. He was born in that house. That same two-story colonial with the creaky steps and faded blue shutters. I brought him home, wrapped in the same yellow blanket my mother knitted for me when I was a baby. I remember standing in the nursery, just holding him, not rocking, just still, afraid that if I moved, the moment would break. That kind of love, raw, aching love, it's not something you can describe unless you've lived through it. It doesn't feel like joy. It feels like being cut open in the best possible way. And from that moment forward, Daniel became my whole world. We didn't have much. His father, Martin, was charming at first. Sweet. Had a way of making promises that sounded like gospel. I was 23 when we bought that house. Thought it was our forever. But forever turned out to be 4 years. After Daniel turned 3, Martin started disappearing on the weekends. Then it became entire weeks. The lies grew and the money shrank. Then came the bruises. One night, he raised his hand to Daniel for dropping a juice cup of all things, and I saw red. Threw him out that same night with a frying pan in one hand and a police dispatcher on the phone in the other. Never saw him again. After that, it was just me and Daniel, and I swore he would never feel alone, never feel unwanted. I worked 2 jobs. During the day, I was a receptionist at a dental clinic. At night, I cleaned office buildings. I'd come home, put a frozen pizza in the oven, and we'd sit together on the old plaid couch and watch cartoons until he fell asleep in my lap. He was such a bright kid, smart, sweet, always drawing pictures for me. "This is you, Mama," he'd say, holding up some stick figure in a cape. "You're my superhero." I kept every one of those drawings. Still have them in a shoebox, rubber banded together in the back of my closet. When he got older, I tried to give him everything I didn't have growing up. Piano lessons, field trips, braces when we couldn't afford them. I even took out a small loan just to buy him his first car, a dusty old Honda Civic that barely started in the cold. But he loved that thing like it was a Ferrari. College wasn't easy, but he got in. Community college first, then transferred to a university upstate. He struggled, but he made it through. Marketing degree. Came home proud, full of ideas, full of dreams. I remember the day he asked me about the house. He was 27, still living here, helping out with bills when he could. He told me he had a plan to start his own business, a small e-commerce thing, selling outdoor gear. All he needed, he said, was to qualify for a business loan. But his credit wasn't great. The lender wanted him to have some equity, something to prove he was stable. He cried, I remember. Sat on the edge of the porch steps, head in his hands, telling me he felt like a failure. I hugged him, told him he was never a failure to me. And when he asked if I'd consider signing the house over to him, at least on paper, I didn't hesitate. I trusted him. He was my son. We had the papers notarized the following week. I didn't think it mattered. We lived here together. I figured when I died, it would go to him anyway. Why not now if it helps him build his life? I still paid all the property taxes. Still kept the utilities in my name. Still cooked, cleaned, managed repairs, painted the gutters myself when the contractor ghosted us. He started dating Lauren a year later. At first I was happy for him. She seemed polite enough. Pretty poised. She brought him out of his shell. He smiled more. Talked about the future more. But it didn't take long to notice the shifts. She started coming over, then stopped leaving. Her things migrated slowly, a hairbrush in the bathroom shoes by the door, her name on the Wi-Fi account. I didn't mind. Not really. I was used to sharing space, but I started feeling like a guest in my own home. One morning, I came downstairs and found my favorite teacups boxed up and replaced with some sleek, modern glassware. No one asked. No one explained. Just replaced. Then came the comments. She's still using that ancient vacuum. Wouldn't it be better if she downsized? I mean, you guys could really upgrade if you sold. They thought I couldn't hear. But I heard everything. I remember Daniel laughing, saying, "She's stuck in her ways." But yeah, we could probably do a lot with that space. I told myself it was just growing pains, a new couple adjusting to boundaries. I didn't want to cause a rift. I stayed in my lane, kept my door closed, but the walls were thin. I heard the way she talked about me. She doesn't contribute. She just takes up space. And then that night, pay rent or leave. He said it like a businessman, like I was some freeloading stranger who'd wandered in from the street. And it didn't matter how many nights I sat with him during fevers, or how many lunches I packed, or how many bills I covered without complaint. None of it mattered now. They wanted me gone. Not directly, not rudely, but quietly, legally, efficiently. But here's what they didn't know. While I gave up a lot over the years, I never gave up everything. I kept records, copies, backups, quiet conversations with an old friend from the city who just so happened to specialize in real estate law. They thought they owned me, but they didn't even own the truth. The shift was so small at first, I almost missed it. It was in his tone. A little flatter, a little colder, like warmth had become an inconvenience. Daniel had always been quick to hug, quick to say, "Love you, Mom," before leaving the house. That stopped sometime last fall. I didn't even notice until one day I said it at the door, and all I got back was, "Yep." Not even a glance. Lauren had her fingerprints on him like frost. I saw it in the way he started dressing blazers with rolled sleeves, no socks with leather loafers. He never used to wear anything like that. It wasn't his taste. It was hers. One evening, I overheard them in the living room curled up together on the couch. I wasn't eavesdropping. I was just walking past on the way to the laundry room. "She's just too comfortable," Lauren said, her voice sweet and sharp all at once. "I mean, don't you think it's time for her to figure things out?" "She raised me," Daniel replied, a sigh tucked beneath his words. "It's hard." "Sure," she said, "but she's not raising you anymore. You have to think about us now, about our future. This house could really work for us, if she wasn't always around." I stood frozen in the hallway, hands tight around the laundry basket. Not because of what she said, but because of how he didn't correct her. He didn't say no. He didn't defend me. He just stayed silent. That silence spoke louder than anything. A week later, I came home and found my antique mirror missing from the hallway. In its place was a tall, modern art piece, some abstract metal sculpture that looked like a bent fork. I stood staring at it for a full minute before Daniel came down the stairs. "Oh," he said. Barely glancing at it, Lauren thought it was time for an update. "The mirror's in the garage. We didn't get rid of it or anything." He said it like he had done me a favor, like banishing my things to the garage was a compromise. I didn't argue. I didn't even ask for the mirror back. I went out to the garden that evening and sat under the maple tree I planted when Daniel was 5. Dug my hands into the soil and kept them there. Felt like I needed to hold something real. Something that still belonged to me. A few days later, I saw Lauren walking past my bedroom with a measuring tape. "Hey, I called. What are you doing?" She jumped, laughed awkwardly. "Oh, just figuring out some layout ideas." "For what?" "Oh, nothing definite," she said, brushing her hair behind her ear. "Just maybe a future nursery." I didn't smile. They hadn't even told me they were trying. Or maybe that was the plan all along. Get me out. Start their family. Claim the whole house like I was never part of it. That night, I sat in bed with my old journals. I don't write in them much anymore, but I've kept everyone since I was 18. I flipped back to the entries from Daniel's first year. I cried reading them. Not because I missed those days, but because I remembered how much I gave, how much of myself I poured into raising him right. I didn't date. I didn't go out. My world was Daniel, and he repaid me by measuring my room for a crib. Then came the day I saw the ad. I was on my laptop looking up recipe videos. I clicked into my email to check for a grocery coupon, and there it was, an auto-generated Zillow ad that said, "Your property could be worth over $780,000 in today's market." I clicked. The numbers stunned me. I knew the house had gone up in value, but that much I scrolled through the sample listings. Homes like mine, same neighborhood, same layout, selling in weeks. Fast cash offers. I stared at the screen for a long time, and something hardened inside me. Daniel and Lauren saw me as a burden. I saw something else. Leverage. The next morning, I called Nancy. She's an old friend from church, now semi-retired, but still dabbling in real estate. We hadn't spoken in years, but she picked up like no time had passed. "Nancy, I said I need to know if it's legal to reverse a quitclaim deed under duress." She paused. "Talk to me, Margie. What's going on?" I told her everything. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "You still have that folder I told you to keep?" I did. Every document, every tax payment, every bill. And more importantly, a clause in the original agreement that stated the transfer was conditional on Daniel maintaining joint residency with me in the property. If he forced me out, the agreement was void. Nancy's voice was firmer then. "You've got a foot in the door, Margie. More than a foot." She gave me the name of a real estate attorney she trusted. I made the call the next day. His name was Victor, and Victor didn't waste time. We met in secret downtown over tea. I brought every paper I had. "This is more common than you think," he told me. "Family members signing things over with trust." Then it flips. He was calm, strategic. He told me to say nothing to Daniel, nothing to Lauren, to keep things exactly as they were. I nodded. Because by then, I wasn't grieving anymore. I was preparing. Let them measure my room. Let them box up my dishes. Let them dream of nurseries and paint swatches and pushing me out quietly. They had no idea the storm I was building behind my silence. I didn't say a word. Not when Lauren started parking in my spot in the driveway. Not when they began locking the liquor cabinet, one I stocked myself. Not even when I found that passive-aggressive sticky note on the refrigerator. "Please label your groceries. It's hard to tell what's yours anymore. Mine. That fridge was mine before she ever learned to twist a cap off a bottle of almond milk. But I kept my face still, my voice soft. I started nodding more, saying sure when I didn't mean it, playing the docile house ghost they clearly wanted me to be. But every day behind that silence, I was gathering threads. Victor had sent me a list documents to gather timelines to establish. Proof of payments I'd made since the deed transfer. Utility bills, property tax receipts, home maintenance invoices. I had them all. I'd been paying because Daniel hadn't. They never expected me to keep records. That was their first mistake. Nancy helped me stage things subtly. We claimed it was just curiosity getting a feel for the market. She brought over a realtor friend one afternoon when Daniel and Lauren were both out. We walked through the house like I was the only decision maker. Because in the legal sense, I still was. That conditional clause had teeth, and Victor was already drafting paperwork. I started storing boxes in my closet, my things, my real things, keepsakes, photographs, paperwork. The items they hadn't already shoved into bins or buried beneath modern upgrades. And I watched them. Lauren spent money like it was water. New espresso machine. Subscription boxes showing up every other day. She started wearing designer sunglasses even indoors. I knew what that meant. She was nesting, planning for permanence. probably even running numbers in her head how much they could sell for in a few years. I imagined her scrolling through Pinterest, searching renovation ideas for a house she didn't own. Then came the slip-up. One evening, I overheard a conversation that sent everything into motion. Daniel was on the phone in the garage. He thought the door was closed, but I'd left it cracked while hauling out laundry. Yeah, he said it's not technically a rental, but we're working on getting it in writing. No, she doesn't pay anything yet, but we're about to set terms. Once she's on paper, we can start counting it as rental income for the loan. There it was. He was trying to use me again. Turn me into a tenant so he could claim rental income on the property and qualify for another financial opportunity. He wasn't just kicking me out. He was monetizing my existence. That night, I didn't cry. I went to my room, opened my laptop, and emailed Victor everything we'd been preparing. Subject line, ready. He responded within the hour. Proceeding as discussed. I'll file the rescission notice in the morning. Let's talk sale next week. That was the moment I changed. I looked in the mirror and saw something different in my eyes. Not anger, not sadness, precision. I didn't need revenge. I needed peace. And peace would come with distance from them, from the house, from the lies. 2 days later, I took a walk with Nancy around the block. We talked about price ranges, bidding wars, cash offers. I smiled like it was a normal Sunday stroll. Then that afternoon, I did something small but significant. I baked a pie. Lauren came in, her perfect nose wrinkling. Oh, wow. Sugar. Just something from my grandmother's recipe box, I said. You two want a slice? Daniel looked surprised. Sure, he said. Thanks, Mom. And I watched them eat, talk, laugh, as if nothing was shifting under their feet. They had no idea I'd signed the rescission forms that morning. No idea the house was in the eyes of the law back in dispute. That the clause they'd dismissed as standard paperwork was now my shield. 3 days later, I scheduled an appraisal. Told Daniel it was for insurance purposes. He nodded, distracted. Lauren didn't even look up from her phone. The appraiser came while they were at work, took measurements, walked through the home slowly. This is a prime location, he said, impressed. I offered tea, smiled. 2 more realtors came over the next week. Quiet visits. Nancy coordinated everything. Then a call from Victor. Margaret, I think it's time to list. Want to see what kind of offers come in? I told him yes. And just like that, the house I built a life in became the symbol of something else entirely, my freedom. The following morning, I posted a note on the kitchen counter. Just a post-it. 1 line. Meeting with realtor at 11 a.m. Don't be late. Daniel saw it first. I heard the disbelief in his voice as he stepped into the hallway. What realtor? I didn't answer. Just waited. Lauren followed behind him, eyebrows drawn. You're selling? She asked, laughing like it was a joke. I turned. Dead calm. Yes, the house is going on the market, effective immediately. Daniel blinked. You can't just do that? I can. I already have. He opened his mouth, ready to argue. I walked to the drawer, pulled out a folder, and handed it to him. Inside was everything: Victor's filings, the rescission notice, the clause they'd ignored, the title status. Lauren flipped through it, face paling. This can't be right, she said. Daniel stared down at the papers like they were written in another language. But I thought, we had you thought wrong, I said. And then I walked past them, out the door, down the front steps, into the car Nancy had waiting. Because the sign was already printed, already in the trunk, and within minutes it stood proudly in the front yard for sale, accepting offers now. Daniel didn't speak to me for 3 days. He sulked, stormed, slammed drawers and doors like a teenager instead of a 30-something man. Lauren was quieter, calculating. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to find a loophole, a way back into control. But there was none. The papers had been filed. The process had started. Every time she opened her mouth to challenge something, I calmly pointed her to Victor's contact information. You can call him, I'd say. But everything's in order. And it was. Legally, completely. The clause in the deed joint residency with the original owner was ironclad. By trying to force me out, they'd voided their own claim. I could have just moved back into sole ownership, but I didn't want it. I didn't want to keep the house. I wanted to leave it on my terms. Offers poured in by the end of the first week. 7 showings. 3 serious offers all over asking price. It made my stomach turn and flutter all at once. That house held everything: birthdays, scraped knees, arguments, Sunday breakfasts. But now it held cold air, silent meals, and eyes that looked at me like an obstacle. Daniel avoided the living room. Lauren made herself scarce too. The energy shifted again. Not just tension fear. Real fear. The 4th night, Daniel finally broke the silence. He found me in the backyard, sitting under the maple tree, staring up at branches I'd watched grow with him. Why are you doing this? He asked. I looked at him. You already know. He shifted awkwardly. I didn't mean it like that. About the rent, it was just... Lauren and we were talking about responsibilities, how things need to be structured. I tilted my head. Structured? He nodded, avoiding eye contact. Like fairness. You know, we're trying to build something here. We thought if we could document expenses, show income, maybe it would help us qualify for some things. You mean, use me as pretend rental income? I said flat. He winced. It's not like that. Then how is it? He didn't answer. Just sighed and sat down on the edge of the garden border, staring out at nothing. I waited. Let the silence sit. Finally, he muttered, You blindsided us. No, Daniel. I reminded you who taught you how to walk. And then I stood up. His jaw clenched, but he said nothing. I let that moment stretch. Let it settle in his bones. I'm not angry, I said quietly. Not anymore, but I won't be erased from my own story. We didn't speak again that night. The next morning, Lauren confronted me, not angrily smiling, a rehearsed kind of smile. We've been thinking, she began, maybe we rushed into all this. If you want to stay, we could find a way to make that work. You wouldn't need to pay rent or anything. I let her speak, let her lay out the bait. We realized how important family is, she said, and Daniel really values you being here. I raised an eyebrow. Is that why you measured my room for a nursery? She flinched, just a blink, but I saw it. That was just hypothetical. We were brainstorming. Brainstorming me out, I said. The smile cracked. She shifted gears quickly. Legally, I still think you're not in the deed, I interrupted. You never were, and now you never will be. I walked past her, slow and calm. The kind of calm that only comes when you've already won. The house sold in under 2 weeks. Full cash offer, waived inspection. The buyer was a retired couple looking to downsize from upstate. They loved the maple tree, said it reminded them of home. Packing was strange. I kept to myself, labeled my boxes, sorted things quietly. Daniel didn't help. Neither did Lauren. I didn't expect them to. On the final day, I stood alone in the center of the living room. The furniture was gone. Only sunlight spilled through the windows. The walls echoed. I ran my hand across the dent in the molding Daniel made that when he was 6, throwing a rubber ball too hard indoors. I never fixed it. I never wanted to. That dent had meaning. So did the small crack by the baseboard where I used to tuck his little love notes to me. Best mom in the galaxy. Don't worry, I'll always live with you. And yet, here we were. He didn't come out to say goodbye. I left the keys on the kitchen counter with a note for the new owners. She's old, but she's loyal. Water the maple often. The roots go deep. Nancy picked me up. We drove in silence for a bit. Second thoughts, she asked gently. I shook my head. No, only regret that I didn't do it sooner. She nodded. I've seen a lot of these, Margie, but never quite like this. I didn't answer. I didn't have to, because I wasn't just walking away from a house. I was reclaiming the version of me that had been buried under duty guilt and manipulation. They thought I was afraid to start over. They didn't realize I'd been dreaming of it for years. The first time I saw panic in Lauren's face was when the moving truck pulled up. A big, boxy diesel engine coughing up noise right in front of the house. Two men stepped out with clipboards. One of them nodded to me like we'd met before. He didn't know the story. Just that I was the homeowner and the house was sold. That's what matters in the end, isn't it? Ownership? Titles. Not feelings, not family ties, just names on paper. That day, my name was the only one that mattered. Lauren opened the door and stared at them like they were repo men. You're actually leaving? She asked. Her voice wasn't steady. She tried to laugh, but it came out brittle. No, I said, meeting her eyes. You're leaving. She blinked. We thought I know what you thought. You thought I'd break. You thought I'd cling. You thought you could back me into a corner and wait me out. But I didn't flinch. Daniel came down the stairs slowly, phone in hand, brows furrowed. They're early, he said, like it mattered. No, I said. They're right on time. Boxes were already being loaded by then, my books, my photos, my kitchenware. The heirlooms Lauren once tried to box up and label as seasonal. The movers worked efficiently, unaware of the tension in the walls around them. Daniel stood in the foyer, arms crossed. He looked small again, not in size, but in presence. Like a boy watching a storm roll in through a window he thought was sealed. You really went through with it, he said. I gave a nod. I warned you, I said. You just didn't want to hear it. I thought you were bluffing. I don't bluff, Daniel. I survive. There's a difference. He looked around the room like it betrayed him. Like the very walls were complicit. Maybe they were. That house knew my heartbreaks, my laughter, my sacrifices. His too once. But he'd sold his part in those memories when he let Lauren talk about me like I was a problem to be solved. He stepped forward, then stopped. Where are you going? Somewhere I don't owe rent to my own child. That's not fair, he said quickly. No, I corrected. What you did wasn't fair. Asking your mother to pay rent in the house she bought, maintained, and handed to you, that wasn't fair. Pretending I didn't matter unless I paid to exist. That wasn't just unfair. That was cruel. Lauren started to say something. I raised a hand to stop her. You've said enough, I told her. And now you can say the rest from a rental agreement. This house is sold. You have 10 days to vacate, or the new owners will have you removed. The silence hit hard. Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. Lauren's expression flickered between rage and disbelief. You can't do this, she said. We have plans. This was supposed to be ours. No, I said. It never was. You just made yourselves at home in someone else's story. She stormed upstairs. The stomp of her heels echoed like gunfire in a church. Daniel stayed rooted, but I saw his eyes following the movers, watching his childhood get packed away, not his really, but what he used to believe was permanent. I gave him no comfort. He made his bed. They spent the next few days in a fog, packing in shame, calling friends to help them find a place. It spread through the neighborhood faster than wildfire. Did you hear Margaret sold the house? Did you hear she kicked them out? Did you hear the house was never really his? Some people whispered. Some brought me small bags of baked goods. One neighbor, Mrs. Pennington, brought over an envelope. "I don't want to intrude," she said, "but I saw what you did, and I just want to say, I wish I'd had your courage 10 years ago." Inside the envelope was a note. He tried to do the same to me. But I didn't fight back. I just left. "You didn't. I kept that note. Still have it in my drawer. People think you age out of betrayal. Like once you're over 50, you stop being vulnerable. Stop being someone they can hurt. But that's not true. You just stop showing it. You learn to turn the knife in silence." Lauren and Daniel were gone by the 9th day. They didn't say goodbye. I didn't expect them to. When the house was finally cleared, I walked through it one last time. Bare floors, scuffed baseboards. The dent in the molding still there. I didn't touch it. Let the new owners discover it like an artifact. Nancy was waiting outside with the check. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm ready." She handed me the envelope. "You did good, Margie. You stood up." I looked at the total. 845,000. It didn't bring joy. Not exactly. But it brought closure. Money couldn't replace love, but it could build something where the ruins used to be. I took a breath. Long. Full. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a mother first. I felt like a woman again. And I liked that feeling. The apology came exactly 36 days after the sale closed. A nondescript envelope slid into my new mailbox one humid Tuesday morning. I remember holding it standing barefoot on the welcome mat of my small coastal condo, watching the ocean roll and sigh through the glass door. No return address, just my name. Mom. The handwriting was unmistakable Daniel's. A little slanted, a little rushed, like he hadn't written by hand in years. I almost didn't open it, almost tossed it in the recycling bin next to the grocery circulars. But something in me needed to know. I took it inside, poured myself a cup of tea, and sat at the table. The letter was short, not emotional, not even particularly vulnerable. It read, "I'm sorry. I didn't realize how far things had gone. Lauren's gone. She moved out a week after the house sold. Said I had nothing left to offer. She was probably right. I miss you. I miss home. I thought I was doing the right thing, trying to create something for myself. I didn't see that I was taking something from you to do it. You probably won't respond. That's fair. But I had to say it. I stared at it for a long time. The paper trembled in my hand, not because I was angry, but because somewhere deep down I'd been waiting for it. Hoping for it, even if I didn't admit it out loud. But it wasn't enough. You can't put a mother through the fire and expect a Band-Aid apology to douse the flames. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I folded the letter slowly and slid it into the drawer next to my journals. Somewhere between my old utility receipts and his kindergarten drawings. I didn't write him back. Not then. But I thought about him. I thought about the way he used to sing when he was 4 loudly and off-key. I thought about the first time he wrote, "I love you" in crayon on my bedroom wall. About the time he fell off his bike and screamed for me before he even hit the ground. And I wondered, how does a child so full of love grow into a man capable of looking through his own mother like a tax liability? I saw it for what it was. A sickness of pride. A slow decay. He was raised on love, but love doesn't inoculate you against greed, against ego, against someone whispering in your ear that you deserve more even if it means taking from the hand that fed you. Still, the apology softened something in me. Not forgiveness, but recognition. He saw what he did. And in a world where most people double down, that was worth something. Weeks passed. I settled into my new life. Morning walks on the beach, book club on Thursdays. I even started painting again, nothing serious, just little watercolors of the sea. One afternoon, I spotted him. At the grocery store, I was reaching for a jar of fig preserves when I heard someone clear their throat behind me. "Hi, Mom." I turned. He looked tired, hollow around the eyes, dressed in the same hoodie he used to wear in college. No Lauren, no polished shoes, just Daniel, stripped down. "Hi," I said. He swallowed. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I live nearby now," I said, "just down by the water." He nodded. "That's nice. It's peaceful." "It is." There was a pause. "I'm sorry," he said again, voice quiet. "I got your letter," I replied. "I meant it," he added quickly. I was stupid. Selfish," I corrected. He looked down. "Yeah, that too. I gave you everything," I said calmly. "I never asked for repayment. Just respect. Kindness. You gave me paperwork." He nodded, ashamed. "I know. I thought I was being responsible. Providing. But I see now I wasn't building anything. I was taking. There it was. The truth." "You let her speak for you," I said. He looked up. "I know. She said what I didn't have the nerve to say, and I let that happen. I let you feel small in your own home." We stood there for a moment in the middle of aisle 6. He looked like he wanted me to reach for him, to hug him, to pull him close and say it was all okay. But it wasn't. It would never be. So I spoke the truth. "I don't hate you, Daniel, but I'm not coming back." He looked stunned. "I'm not asking you to." "Yes, I said you are, even if you don't say it. With your eyes, with your letter, with the way you stood behind me like a child again. But I've moved on. This peace I have, I earned it, and I won't give it up again. Not even for you." He looked like he might cry. I didn't stop him. "I'll always be your mother," I said. "But you have to live with what you did, and if you're lucky, learn from it." Then I turned, and I walked away. Not out of cruelty, out of survival, out of self-respect. Because forgiveness is not the same as access. And sometimes the most merciful thing you can do is leave someone behind so they can finally see the space they carved into your absence. The wind was soft that morning. It moved the curtains just enough to dance along the floor, like fingers brushing across a memory. I sat at my kitchen table, no longer a house full of tension, but a small, sunlit condo with sea glass on the windowsill and quiet in every corner. I sipped my tea and stared at the ocean beyond the balcony, thinking about everything I had lost and everything I had gained. Closure doesn't arrive all at once. It's not a switch or a moment. It comes in pieces, little fragments of peace that find their way into your bones when you least expect them. The silence I used to fear had become a comfort. There was no one questioning where I was going, no one judging what I ate, what I watched, what music I played. I played old jazz records, now the ones I used to love before life got too loud. Sometimes I danced alone in the living room, barefoot, the floor cool beneath my feet, my laughter bouncing back at me in echo. I hadn't spoken to Daniel since the grocery store. His apology lingered in the air like the last note of a sad song, honest maybe, but not enough to change the past. I kept his letter, but I didn't reread it. I didn't need to. Everything I needed to know was already written across the last few years. That week, I decided to write something back, not to mail it. Just for me, a letter I would never send. Dear Daniel, you broke something in me I didn't know could break at my age. I always thought by 62 I'd be unshakable. But you showed me that love doesn't age into invincibility. It just grows quieter, more fragile. You made me feel invisible in the one place I thought I would always be seen. I don't hate you. I want you to know that. But I also don't trust you. I raised you to be kind, to be grateful, to see people, especially those who give without asking, and somewhere you lost that. Maybe I helped. Maybe I gave too much and asked for too little, but I was doing what I thought was right. That's all I ever did, what I thought was right. I hope you find yourself. The real version, not the one that mirrors someone else's ambition. I hope one day you make a home where no one has to earn the right to stay. And when you do, I hope you remember me. Love, Mom. I folded the paper, tucked it into the back of my journal, and closed the cover. That felt like a turning point. A quiet exhale. Later that month, I ran into Nancy again at the bakery near the boardwalk. She was sipping her cappuccino with a mischievous little grin when she saw me. "You look different," she said. "Do I lighter?" she replied. "Like someone who dropped 100 pounds of dead weight." I laughed. I think I dropped about 200, actually. We sat together outside watching seagulls bicker over crumbs and sea air roll through the trees. "You regret it?" she asked. "No," I said, "but I grieved it, and that surprised me." "Grief is a funny thing," she said. "It's not just for death, it's for hope too, and illusions." We talked for an hour, maybe more, about life after motherhood, about starting over, about how peace doesn't come when everything's fixed. It comes when you stop trying to fix what was never yours to hold in the first place. I started volunteering at the local library, just a few hours a week, shelving books, organizing events. I liked being surrounded by stories, not just because they reminded me of the life I used to dream about, but because they reminded me I was still writing mine. One day, a little girl came in with her grandmother. She was about 5, hair tied in puffy pink bows, cheeks like warm apples. She ran up to the children's section and hugged a book about dinosaurs. "I want to take this one home," she said. The grandmother smiled. "You can, baby. That's the whole point." I watched them walk out together, hand in hand, and something inside me ached. Not from pain, but from recognition. I had been both of them, child, mother, guardian, and now I was just me. And that was enough. That night, I made my favorite dinner, lemon butter salmon with roasted asparagus, and poured a glass of wine. I lit a candle, played Miles Davis, and let myself feel full. Not just in my stomach, in my life. I didn't miss the house. Not really. What I missed was the feeling of mattering. And now, in a strange and beautiful way, I mattered again. To myself. There's a kind of magic in reclaiming your space. In walking into a room where no one resents your presence. Where your silence is not suspicious. Where your kindness isn't currency. I didn't forgive Daniel in the sense most people expect. I didn't call him. I didn't send the letter. I didn't invite him to visit. But I let go of the rage. And that was forgiveness enough. One morning, I stood at the edge of the beach barefoot, the tide curling around my ankles. The sun hadn't fully risen, but the sky was soft and full of promise. I closed my eyes, breathed in. I thought of the house, of all the rooms I once filled with love. And I whispered just to the wind, "I forgive you. But I'm not coming back." The condo was quiet at night in a different way than the old house. It wasn't heavy or tense. It was still. Like the silence didn't come from emptiness, but from peace. Sometimes I'd wake up around 3 a.m., just my body's old rhythms from years of motherhood, listening for a cry that never came, and I'd walk barefoot to the balcony. The ocean looked black in the dark, a ripple of ink under the moonlight. I'd lean on the railing, cup of tea in hand, and just listen. That stillness became my ritual. One night, I brought out the box I had refused to open for years. A small wooden chest, no lock, just a faded latch, and a handwritten label, Daniel, early years. I hadn't opened it since he was in high school. I think part of me was afraid of how much love was inside it, afraid of how it would feel now that he'd become a stranger in a suit who spoke in percentages. But that night, under moonlight and silence, I opened it. Inside were folded drawings, cards, a bent plastic star he made in preschool with glitter stuck to every corner. His little baby shoes scuffed, worn at the toes, still faintly smelling of that powdery baby lotion I used to use. I sat there for an hour, holding pieces of a boy who used to love me without question, who used to climb into my lap after a bad dream and whisper, "Don't ever leave me." I didn't. He did. That was the thing about betrayal. It didn't come with a fight. It came with erosion, a slow wearing away until love became inconvenience, until presence became unwanted. I found a birthday card he'd made me when he was 11, to the best mom ever. "One day, I'm going to buy you a big house so you never have to work again. Love, Daniel." I laughed, not bitter, just softly. A real laugh. He had tried. Once, before life taught him to calculate instead of care. I tucked the card back in the box, but I didn't close it. Instead, I left it open on the coffee table, a quiet reminder that love can be both truth and history. Later that week, I got a call from Victor, my lawyer, the one who had helped me untangle the legal web Daniel wrapped me in. "I know we finalized everything," he said, "but I just wanted to tell you personally you did the right thing, and not just because of the contract." I smiled. "Thank you, Victor. That means more than you know." He chuckled. "I've seen too many parents give until there's nothing left but resentment. You took your life back. We said goodbye." But I sat with his words a while longer. I took my life back. It didn't feel like revenge anymore. It felt like reawakening. The days started to stretch in new directions. I took a cooking class with some of the women from book club. I started swimming again, slow laps in the saltwater pool every morning at sunrise. I even went on a date. A man named Joseph who lived 2 buildings down. Widowed. Kind. He had soft eyes and the kind of voice that never tried to dominate a room. We met over shared gardening pots. He complimented my rosemary plant, and before I knew it, we were having coffee at the corner cafe. It wasn't romantic, not yet, but it was warm and safe. One afternoon, while I was organizing my bookshelves, a text popped up on my phone. It was from Daniel. Just a photo, a new apartment, bare walls, a mattress on the floor, a caption underneath, "Starting over." You were right. I stared at it for a long time. Didn't reply. Didn't delete it either. Just let it sit there. Like him. Out there learning what I already knew, that rock bottom has a way of revealing what you've built on sand. The next morning, I mailed him something. Not a letter, just the birthday card from the box. The one where he promised me a house. No note, no explanation. I imagine he opened it and didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Good. Let him sit with it. Let him feel the weight of what was once so easily promised. I didn't need a house anymore. I had a home. My home. One built not on guilt or duty, but on chosen peace. Closure isn't about getting the last word. It's about knowing you could and deciding not to. So I sat on my balcony that night, watching the sky go from lavender to navy, feeling the breeze in my hair. Somewhere my sun was beginning again, and somewhere in the same world so was I. But this time, we were doing it apart. And for once, I didn't feel like that was a tragedy. It felt like the truth finally resting, and I let it rest. It started with a postcard, a plain weathered thing with a photo of redwood trees on the front and no return address. The handwriting was Daniel's, though slanted familiar, like it had been written with a hesitant hand. It read, "I saw these trees and thought of the maple. Hope you're doing well. D." No apology, no request. Just a note, a flicker, a branch reaching back toward its root. I set the card on the mantel next to the little ceramic turtle I found at a flea market and stared at it for a long time. I didn't feel anything sharp. No spike of pain or rush of anger. Just a strange sort of ache. The kind you feel when you hear a familiar melody after years of forgetting the words. Later that evening, I pulled out the letter I wrote him, the one I never mailed. I read it again slowly, word by word. This time, it felt like it was written by a different version of me. Not a stranger, just an older shadow. One who had walked through the fire and come out on the other side, wrapped in smoke and resolve. That version of me needed to write that letter. This version of me didn't need to send it. So I burned it, lit a single match, and held the letter over the sink, watching it curl into ash. No ceremony, no drama, just a clean goodbye to the words I didn't need anymore. I'd already said everything that mattered, and I'd said it by living. My life now was small, and I loved it that way. I knew the barista's name at the cafe. I had a chair at the library that everyone called Margaret's Corner. The beach near the condo had become my sacred place. Morning walks, afternoon reads, barefoot stretches, where no one expected me to explain who I was. Sometimes people say starting over is lonely. It is. But loneliness, when it's chosen, is not emptiness. It's space. Space for air, for breath, for rebuilding. I got a new bookshelf delivered. A beautiful oak one with glass doors. I spent a whole day arranging it alphabetically, then emotionally, then by memory. Each book meant something. Some were old friends, some were new discoveries. All of them were mine. I kept one shelf empty, not for anyone else. Just as a reminder that I wasn't done. That there was still room for stories I hadn't lived yet. 2 weeks after the postcard, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered it out of habit, expecting a survey or a sales pitch. But it was Lauren. Her voice was different, tighter, raspier. Margaret, she said, like my name tasted wrong in her mouth. I didn't respond, just waited. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, she continued. But I wanted to say I'm sorry. For all of it. For the things I said. For what we tried to do. I was wrong. Still, I said nothing. I left Daniel. You probably guessed that. He wasn't the man I thought he was. I almost laughed. Instead, I said he was the man I raised. The man you used. And you both made choices. There was silence on her end. I'm working now, she said. Actually working. At a community center in Arizona, teaching art to kids. It's not glamorous, but it's real. I didn't offer approval or forgiveness. She didn't ask for it. I hope you're well, she added softly. I am, I said, and I ended the call. Because some chapters don't need to be reopened. They just need to be closed with grace. That night, I wrote again. Not to Daniel, not to Lauren, just to myself. Dear Margaret, you didn't fail, you didn't break. You bent and you swayed, but you never snapped. You lost what you thought was everything and found what was actually worth keeping. You've earned your peace. Hold it tight. Love me. I tucked that note inside the front cover of my journal, the same journal I had started the day after Daniel told me to pay rent or leave. Funny how full circles feel more like spirals. You end up back where you started, but not quite the same. Higher, wiser, more whole. A few days later, I was walking the beach at sunrise. The tide was low, and I spotted something half buried near a patch of seaweed. It was a small, weather-worn marble, blue and white like the planet from space. I picked it up, wiped it clean, and held it in my palm. It reminded me of when Daniel was little. He had a whole jar of marbles. Said each one was a planet. Each one had a name. I remember watching him hold one up to the light and whisper, This one's mine. I'm going to live here one day. Maybe we all have to leave our planet once to know what it really meant. Maybe we all fall out of orbit before we learn how to land. But I was done chasing orbits. I had already arrived. And as I slipped that marble into my pocket and walked back toward home, I smiled. Not because I won, not because they lost, but because I had finally stopped measuring my life by what I gave away. Now I measured it by what I chose to keep. The morning light came in soft over the water like it was shy to touch anything. I stood in the kitchen stirring my tea barefoot on the warm tile floor, listening to the waves outside like they belonged to me. In some ways, they did. This was my world now, my rhythms, my rules. I didn't need anyone's permission to breathe deeply. I didn't ask if the music was too loud or if the eggs smelled too strong. I just existed, and after a lifetime of giving and shrinking and making room for everyone else, simply existing felt like the most defiant joy of all. It had been 4 months since I sold the house. 4 months since I walked out the front door and never looked back. Some nights, I still dreamed about it, not the house, but Daniel as a boy. 7 years old, missing teeth, running through the hallway in pajamas with dinosaurs on them. In the dreams, he always looks back at me and says, "Are you coming, Mom?" And I always say yes. Every time. But when I wake up, the answer is different. "No, sweetheart. I'm not coming. I already have. I've come home." I was planting herbs that day, basil, mint, rosemary, when I saw him again. Daniel. He was standing near the edge of the lot, hands in his pockets, wearing a faded t-shirt and jeans that hung a little too loose. He looked older. Not aged exactly, but like someone who had finally stopped pretending. I wiped my hands on my apron and met him halfway. He didn't speak at first, just looked around. "You did all this?" I nodded. "It's nice," he said, and I could tell he meant it. We stood in silence, listening to the rustle of the sea breeze in the rosemary. "I don't know what I expected," he said finally. "But not this." "What did you expect I don't know?" He shrugged. "That you'd be angry or bitter. That you'd shut me out." "I did shut you out," I said calmly. "And I'm still doing it." He nodded. "Yeah, I guess I deserve that." "Deserve is a strange word," I said. "But you chose what you did. You made decisions with your eyes open." "So did I." He looked down, then back up. "I'm not here to ask for anything," he said. "I just wanted to see you. To see that you're okay." "I am." He swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." "You've said that." "I know," he whispered, "but I think I understand it better now." I waited. I lost everything after the house. The business loan, Lauren, some friends, even myself for a while. I was so focused on being independent, on building something, I didn't notice that I was burning bridges to make room for it. "That's not independence," I said. "That's abandonment." "You confuse the two?" He blinked. "You made me feel like a squatter in my own life, Daniel. And now I've made a life where I don't have to explain my worth to anyone." He nodded, eyes glassy. "I'm proud of you," he said. That struck something in me. Not joy, not relief, but grief. The grief of hearing those words too late, and the peace of knowing I didn't need them anymore. "I hope you mean that," I said. "I do." He pulled something from his pocket, a folded note. He held it out, and I took it slowly. "I didn't come here to talk," he said. "Not really. Just wanted to say what I couldn't say right." I looked down at the paper, but didn't open it. "You know this doesn't change things, right?" He nodded quickly. "I know. I don't expect it to." We stood there a little longer. The wind blew between us. He didn't ask to come inside. I didn't offer. Eventually, he stepped back. "Take care, Mom." And then he left. I didn't open the note until hours later. It wasn't long, just 3 lines. You were never a burden. You were the roof over my head. I hope one day I can build something that strong. I pressed the paper flat and slid it into the back of my journal. Not as a keepsake, as a marker. The day he began to understand, even if it was far too late. That evening, I took a walk on the beach. The tide was high, the sky painted in slow oranges and pinks. I picked up bits of sea glass along the shore green blue clear and carried them in my palm like blessings. When I came home, I boiled pasta poured wine and played Ella Fitzgerald. I danced in the kitchen again. Not to forget, not to escape, but to celebrate the space I'd reclaimed, the home I'd made. I had nothing left to prove, to Daniel, to anyone. I had become the woman I'd always been. Only now I didn't need a title to wear it. Not mother, not wife, not homeowner, just Margaret. Whole. I used to think closure would come in one sharp moment, like a gavel slamming down or a door shutting behind me. But I've learned it's slower than that. Softer. It creeps in through the cracks of your ordinary days, when you realize you haven't cried in weeks, when you pass your reflection, and don't look away when you set the table for one, and it feels enough. Closure isn't a single event. It's dozens of small ones that whisper, "You're safe now. You made it." That realization came to me fully one afternoon in early spring. I was reorganizing the hall closet, one of those little projects you put off until you feel sturdy enough to sort through old coats and memories. I found a box labeled Taxes, 2014 to 2020. I almost put it straight in the donation pile, but something nudged me to open it. Inside, stacked neatly, were receipts, utility bills, property tax stubs, home repair invoices, all signed by me, all paid by me, all the proof. All the years I quietly kept the lights on while Daniel thought the roof was just there. I sat on the floor and ran my hands over the paper like I was touching a scar. This box wasn't about money. It was about the invisible weight I carried, how easy it was to be erased while still holding everything up. I sealed the box again, but this time with a label that read, "Proof of worth. Keep forever." That night, Joseph came by. We'd grown closer in the past few months, easy Sunday morning conversations, slow walks down the pier, sharing books, and fresh tomatoes from his garden. He didn't try to rescue me or fill any roles. He just showed up gently and kept showing up. He brought a bottle of white wine and a bouquet of yellow tulips. "What's the occasion?" I asked. "No occasion," he said with a smile. "But you always light up around yellow." I did. I hadn't realized someone else noticed. We sat out on the balcony, our feet propped up the sound of waves below. He asked me once, a few weeks back, if I ever thought about reaching out to Daniel again. I told him the truth. I don't think he's ready for me. Not the version of me I've become. Because the woman I am now has boundaries. She has softness, yes, but also steel. She knows her value. She knows silence doesn't mean weakness, and forgiveness doesn't mean return. Still, sometimes I look at the photo I keep on the side table, Daniel at 4 years old, holding a paper crown. I made him grinning like the world was simple and good. That version of him I'll always love. But love isn't always enough to go back. Instead, I built forward. Joseph asked if I wanted to take a trip with him this summer. "To Maine," he said. "I've got a little cabin up there. Nothing fancy. Just space-quiet pine trees and blueberry pancakes." I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't want to go, but because for the first time in years, someone was asking me to come along, not move aside. I said yes. The next day, I went to the post office and mailed something to Daniel. No note, no explanation. Just one small item. The marble I'd found on the beach, the one that reminded me of the planet he claimed as a child. A reminder, perhaps, that not everything lost stays buried, and that starting over is something you earn, not something someone gives back to you. I didn't expect a response. I didn't need one. Let him hold that marble in his palm and remember who gave him his first sense of the universe. The next weekend, I hosted 3 of the book club ladies for dinner. We laughed over wine-told stories that got louder with each glass and passed around homemade lemon bars until our stomachs ached. One of them, Sandra, said something that stuck with me. "You know, Margaret, you carry yourself like someone who doesn't need the world to clap for her anymore." I smiled. Maybe because I've already walked off the stage. Later that night, I sat with that thought. I used to live for the applause, motherhood sacrifice being the dependable one, the giver, the strong one. But now I lived for the quiet applause of my own choices, for the sound of waves and jazz and no one raising their voice, for warm bread, unread novels, and the deep breath I took when I opened the front door to a space that was mine. I didn't need to be needed anymore. I needed to be whole. And every day I was. More and more. That's what closure really looks like. Not slamming doors, but open windows, and a woman standing by them smiling, wind in her hair, whispering to the world I'm still here. And I'm finally free. It was a Tuesday, quiet, warm, unremarkable, when the final letter came. Tucked into a cream envelope with careful handwriting and a small return address in a city 2 hours inland. I knew it before I even picked it up. The weight of it, the neatness, the hesitation in every curve of the letters. Daniel. It had been nearly 3 months since I sent the marble. He hadn't responded. I hadn't expected him to. But there it was, waiting like a final page. In a book I didn't think would have an ending. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit on the kitchen counter while I finished my tea, walked down to the beach, let the salt and wind braid through my thoughts. I wasn't afraid of what was inside, just deliberate. When I finally opened it, it was handwritten front and back of a single page, the kind of writing that looked like it had been erased and rewritten more than once. Dear Mom, you were right about all of it. I didn't see it before. Not really. Not until everything went quiet. After you left, it was like the walls of that house echoed with everything I didn't say to you. I walked past the maple tree one more time before we left. Lauren didn't even look up from her phone. That's when I knew. I wasn't just following someone else's idea of success. I was hiding behind it. I was afraid to admit that the house didn't belong to me, not in title, not in spirit. It was yours. It always had been. I didn't build anything. I inherited something sacred and tried to charge rent for it. I've been rebuilding. Slowly. I found a job, nothing glamorous, just helping manage a small community garden program. I rent a tiny apartment with creaky floors and chipped tiles, but I pay for it with my own hands. I cook now. I think about you every time I burn something, which is often. I kept the marble. It sits by the window, catching sunlight. Reminds me of that game we used to play, naming planets, building new worlds. You always let me win. I didn't realize until now that you were building me a world all along. One I tore down without even knowing what I had. If you never write back, I'll understand. I don't deserve a place in your new life, but I wanted to say this clearly, thank you. Not just for what you gave me, but for showing me what strength really looks like. You didn't raise a perfect man, but you raised one who's finally learning. Love, Daniel. I folded the letter carefully and slid it into the same box as the others. I didn't cry. I didn't feel rage or even regret. I just breathed. Deep. Whole. I didn't write back. I didn't need to. My silence was no longer a wound. It was my boundary. And it was made of steel. That weekend, the new owners of my old house sent a photo. A thank you note arrived in the mail signed by the couple and their grandkids with a picture of the front porch decorated in fall leaves and pumpkins. At the bottom, scribbled in a child's handwriting, "We love the maple tree. Thank you for planting it." I stared at it for a long time, and then I laughed. A full, open laugh. I'd planted something, and it lived on. Long after me. Joseph came by that afternoon, holding a bag of groceries and a new book for us to read together. "What's so funny?" he asked. Nothing, I said. Everything. He smiled and kissed my cheek. We made lunch, played Coltrane, sat on the balcony watching the horizon slowly melt into golden haze. Later that evening, I walked out to the beach with the letter in my hand. The tide was low. The sun was dipping. I stood at the edge of the water, letting the waves tug at my ankles. I held the letter once more. And then I let it go. Not out of anger, not out of dismissal, but because I didn't need it anymore. The tide carried it away, piece by piece, and I stood there, hands empty, heart full. I had made peace, not with Daniel, not with the past, but with myself. The version of me who kept quiet, who gave everything, who waited for love to return in the shape she gave it. She was gone. In her place stood someone new, steady, unshaken. Home. I turned and walked back up the shore. Behind me, the water swallowed the last of the paper. Ahead of me, the lights from my window were glowing warm and gold. And I smiled not because of what I left behind, but because of everything I still had left to live.